Well, okay. I'm going to try to tell you a love story in three parts today. And each part has a poem that will sort of talk about it. A couple of ones that you might be familiar with, but you might not be. And then one that's nobody's familiar with, new one. This book, Cave of the Heart, came out in 22, and a lot of, just a little side note, especially if you're new, or maybe you're listening to this sometime on YouTube, if you just send me a little email and just put Cave of the Heart in the subject line and give me your mailing address, I'll send you a copy of it. Okay, just as a gift. I still have a few copies left here, so I'd be glad to do that. But let's start this kind of love story with the title poem, which happens to be on the back of the book, Cave of the Heart. Everything we've ever thought or could ever think about God is wrong. Everything we've ever thought or could ever think about God is wrong. Nothing we could ever say or write about the Spirit would be as true as breathing in and out just once in simple gratitude. Nothing we could ever say or write about the Spirit would be as true as breathing in and out just once in simple gratitude. We can let go of the insanity of trying to fit the great mystery into the tiny worldview we had to fashion as children, that always had to have an I at the very center of it. We can say yes to the grace that knows full well that our coins are counterfeit, but accepts them anyway. We can say yes to the grace that knows full well that our coins are counterfeit, but yet accepts them anyway. We can say yes to the mystery of a love supreme that is simply abiding in the silence and eternally dwelling in the cave of the heart. We can say yes to the mystery of the love supreme. Yeah, it's cave of the heart. Everything we've ever thought or could ever think about God is wrong. Because a thought's not big enough. It's like trying to fit, your car into your cereal box. It just can't be done. So let's, thoughts about God, even words about God. And, I'm reading two Thomases right now. I'm reading Thomas Merton, and I'm reading the Gospel of Thomas, who are guys who threw a lot of words at it, but they constantly reminded you it's not it. That you can't really get it up here. It has to be gotten here. That's part of the reason we call this heart to heart. I just try to find something in the talk that's from my heart to you. That's my only requirement, that this has got to be like the truth as I know it. And the heart knows what's true, you see. The heart, that's why we're surrounded by lies in this culture and in the world, because they've lost the heart of it. The mind, well, maybe it's this, and you shade things, you can pad your resume, like poor brother George, everything is made up, well, that's everybody. He's my brother. I have great compassion to him because, we all pad the resume slightly. Even Tolkien said, every good story deserves a little embellishment. Well, some of us embellish a lot to where we don't, we're just totally like, mythical creatures here, invisible men, and women. So, and I'm throwing words at it too. Buddha threw words at it, a lot of them, 40 years of words. But in the end, it was the silence. And that's why the cream wafer here it's the silence where you can take all those words and see really what means anything, and then there's something in the process that we're talking about, this journey, sort of the journey to become a full human being, that involves saying yes at some point to the journey. You wouldn't be here if you weren't even thinking about it. And but don't call it the spiritual journey, because that sounds like something special for monks or nuns or Merton or meditators. No, this is the journey to being fully human that I'm talking about, which is the journey. If you read Merton, you find out, a saint is somebody who really reaches that sense of being fully himself or herself. That's what Merton called the true self, the one that's underneath all the embellishment, all the all the smoke and mirrors, all the lies, and so don't think to become a saint. I told last time I talked on the Saturday, I talked that one little 7th grade girl told me what she wanted to be, but she whispered it, and she asked me not to tell any of the students. I said, okay. And she said, I want to be a saint. Everybody else want to be an astronaut or a fireman or, a cop or scientist, which is all good. But she was just one kid in my entire 30 years of teaching in Catholic schools. There's only one kid who confided in me that she wanted to be a saint. Now it's not a kind of cookie cutter, somebody with their hands always folded. That's not what maybe, I don't know what she thought, but that's not what anybody who's ever tried it thinks, because you read the book, Lives of Butler's Lives of the Saints. I was reading it as a little 6th grade, want to be a priest kid. Oh man, these guys were all over the place, these saints. They all had so many blind alleys. You read the thing of St. Augustine, your hair curls, these guys were all unique. There wasn't a mold, and it wasn't about being pious or saying prayers. It was about these guys every saint is totally unique. That's the one thing they share. There are miles apart in a lot of behaviors and whatever, but the one thing what it means to be a saint for me is you become totally who you're meant to be. That's the journey. Okay, that's the journey, I think, at least from my view. That's the journey worth taking. Otherwise, we're just pretending. It's pretense. Who hasn't pretended? Okay. So here's the second part of the love story here. This is a new poem that just came out in the week of actually, it came out fairly recently, and I junked the talk I was going to give for this talk. This is most of my poems, you could tweet them. I'm not an epic poet. They don't come that way. And this one you could tweet. It has less characters. You could fit it in a tweet. It goes like this. To experience and evolve a relationship with divine presence. To experience and evolve a relationship with divine presence within us and among us. Within us and among us is the heart of our journey to become fully human. That's it. I just call this the heart of the journey. To experience and evolve a relationship with divine presence within us and among us is the heart of our journey to become fully human. I'm just basing it on my own experiment, but it's just so integral to have this relationship, to both experience it. And again, that's the beginning. We have to realize that this is not like sitting in silence thinking of like angelic thoughts. No, this is sitting in the silence and experiencing what comes. And there's nobody who commits to a life of meditation or contemplation who doesn't experience both boredom and frustration. That's part of the game. And that doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. You will oftentimes experience what we call boredom or frustration. Your mind won't settle down, that kind of stuff. All these voices, telling you about what a waste of time it is. You could be watching Netflix or something. The experience. So you experience firstly, and then it evolves, to experience and evolve. Evolution. You're a piece of evolution. If you caught John Segrist's talk while I was in Italy about the light, it was brilliant. Brilliant as a subject, and he talked about what a long process it was to, even evolve the planet Earth, let alone human beings. It's a long process, but don't think that evolution has nothing to do with the spirit. Darwin didn't. Darwin mentioned God. He mentioned compassion, by the way, many more times than the survival of the fittest. But he's talking about this evolution. It didn't stop with human beings. For one thing, we're physically still evolving. We have metal parts in us. We have little computers. If you have a pacemaker, you have a little computer in you, because the guys at the office in the, upper New York are monitoring your heart, So, but this is all good. This is just the way it is. But we're not only evolving physically, but more importantly, we're trying to evolve to the point where we become who we're meant to be. And that's a long process. Might not be completed, in this lifetime. Martin died he was just 50, I think he was 53 or 52, just short of his next birthday, but, early 50s. And had he completed the process? Well, you read the Asian Journal, it certainly sounds like he might have, but who knows? Only God knows. Only Burton knows. But the point is in the only rodeo. As Richard Gere said, and I've quoted this a couple of times, when he was asked by Tricycle what his practice was, he said, I meditate an hour a day. And the guy says, really? That's all? You think you'll become enlightened with just an hour a day of spiritual practice? He said, oh, probably not. But that's all I've got, because I'm doing, he's working for Tibet. He's making movies, giving the money to Tibet. So he said, no, probably not. But I'm satisfied that I got the ball rolling in the right direction. That's the whole point. Get the ball rolling in the right direction. That's what you call karma, you see. And he knew that this was not when we graduate from this life, you got more time. You have eternity if you need it. That's the kindest thought that I could ever really think, or share with people is you got eternity on this journey. Don't rush it. Take your time. Buckle up for the long haul. So it's an evolving a relationship with something that's transpersonal on one level, with the divine presence. As I said, we can't even think about it. We can't even connect God with us. So how can you have a relationship with God? And that is the point. That is the point. To have this relationship with whatever you call it, God, the Buddha nature, basic goodness, a lot of traditions throw the Tao, this moment. But there's something about the divine presence, and this is where Yeshua, Jesus, comes in, because he said, this thing we're all looking for, it's both in us and among us. So that's why I say, to relationship with the divine presence within us and among us. And the order, I think, is that Jesus said was the order that really makes sense, because until you realize that it's in you, this transpersonal thing, this thing that really has no name, this thing is beyond name and form, that it's actually in you. There's a spark of it in there. It's part of your DNA. Then you could never really come to, like Martin on the Street Corner, we talk so often about that, March 19th, 1958, when the last veil dropped and he saw all these people in the middle of the shopping district, all shining like the sun. Well, he was seeing that for a moment, that everybody had this. Black, white, poor, rich, didn't matter. He saw everybody, and he realized that he loved them all and that they loved him at a level that they didn't even know him. But that's what is at the center for somebody coming from a Christian viewpoint and vocabulary, that this great love lives in us. It's really veiled, and We don't always feel it. Some people live their whole life and never even have an inkling of it. But that it's within us. But then what he realized is it was among us. Everybody had it. You know how he said it was like waking from a dream of separateness, of a separate existence, which is the Buddha's. You know, Jesus realized that, realized that the Buddhist, that's why they call him the Buddha. He woke up. You know, I just, it's ludicrous to have, you know, one political party say, we're not woke. We're not woke, anti-woke. Well, all right. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. It seems sort of crazy. What's the point? Waking up. And this is the heart of the journey, to have a relationship, you know, with God, with this thing that is a source of all this. As John explained in his talk about the scientific explanation of how anything came to be at all. Isn't it sort of a miracle that we're here at all? Not all, you know, that's just the start of it. The fact that we can be talking to one another now, although we're all over the country and in France and, you know, Hawaii, but we can sit here and hear the words and think with each other. It's a miracle. But it's the heart of our journey to become fully human, is to start to have a relationship with our ace in the hole. The fact that you have this spark of the divine, of the transpersonal, this force. I like love for it. I called it in there, I used Coltrane's term, the love supreme. And you have it. We can keep it under a bushel basket. We can keep it well veiled, 70,000 veils between us and everybody else, or we can go on the journey of trying to evolve it, to try to unveil it, take the bushel basket off of it. Okay. And that leads us to another short poem that's a kind of deconstruction poem, because the main line in it is just these 9 syllables: be still and trust the love that moves the stars. Okay, that's the basic line. And then in each of the next lines, I deconstruct it. I drop something off. So be still and trust the love that moves the stars. This is that source thing that literally did create the stars, and they're all moving, and we're here. So be still and trust the love that moves the stars, and then be still and trust the love. Be still and trust. Be still. Be. So it's a process of subtraction. So if you know, this journey is not about accumulating stuff, new ideas. Yeah, they're fine, but the whole thing, it's a process of really dropping these things that veil that pure being that you are, you see. So that's why it sort of goes like this on the page, to where the last word is be. Be. And so it's a good, I'll use it when we go into a formal meditation. It helps. It helps me. I use it myself every day, to just bring myself down to just being here and letting. One image I had in the poem was that it was like entering a divine, sacred tanning booth. You know, you don't do anything when you're in the tanning bed. You just put yourself there, you know, and then you allow the machine to do the work, to you know, send those beams to you, you know. Why white people want to be black, I don't know, you know. I mean, you know, but and those machines, I think, are a little dangerous. You know, vitamin D, that's pretty good, but it's a good metaphor, because that's how I see sitting and contemplation. Is there's nothing to do. That's why the last word is be. You just put yourself there. You just be there, and let the divine do the rest. You know, It's like sunlight. It's like sitting out on a winter day in the sun and you just shut your eyes. It just feels good. Well, that's the trick. So nothing to do. So I think that's good enough. Let's get ready to do that.